Good evening, friends. We have a very interesting topic today. And the topic is about the bull market. Are we on the cusp of a new bull market? I know the rupee has touched an all-time low. While there is a difference of opinion, people are still skeptical that bull market is not yet arrived. That is where one should look at the bull market. If there is a consensus that there is a bull market will not be there. That's the way, that's how the market behaves. If everyone believes that this particular company will go up, probability is very high that everything good is discounted in the price and hence it will not do well. And the same way, if when everyone thinks the worst case scenario and if the management is good, probability is very high that company will give a bountiful returns to the investors. So today I'm going to talk about why do I see the bull market coming in. Number one. Number two, if the bull market is likely to come, what should be your strategy? See, जरूरी नहीं है कि मार्केट में तेजी हो तो आपके पोर्टफोलियो में तेजी हो and vice versa. And hence, what is the strategy that you should be adopting to create that bigger wealth for yourself? Please listen to me very, very carefully. If you have your friends or relatives who would like to learn from this, please invite them through this in this webinar. We are just about to begin. Please listen to me very, very carefully. I have been getting a lot of messages from our esteemed customer that you advise us rightly on the gold and silver. And something similar I want to today talk about the equity market. But before I begin my webinar, a disclaimer. This webinar is just to enhance your understanding about the equity market. Please consult your financial advisor before buying or selling any stock. Equity market are subject to market risk and hence be careful of what you commit to the equity market, and past performance is no indicator of future returns. My request to all of you is that we put a lot of efforts to make this PPT, gather data, assemble data, analyze those data. You are not supposed to circulate our content without our prior permission. So what are the indicators that make marking towards the bull run? And if you look at Indian equity market, 2025 is one of the worst performing market in the world. India has always been a flag bearer in terms of the best performing equity market, am I right? But 2025 turning out to be one of the worst equity market for the investors. The country like South Korea, if you look at it, and if I can you just get my mouse, please? Basil, get me my mouse now. My cabin mein. Okay. If you look at the country like South Korea, 76% return in dollar terms I'm talking about, okay? Brazil, which has also seen the impact of a higher tariff from the US, and of course today some of the products, the tariff has been reduced, 43% gone again. Japan, which has been, people are talking about the rate of interest going up and so on and so forth, 34%. Germany, one of the slowest growing economy in the Europe region. Taiwan has its own problem with the China and so on, 31%. An emerging market, 30%. The most tracked market, S&P 500 at 16%, and India 5%. So now you can imagine that India has been one of the worst, and if that is so, why am I so bullish about the Indian equity market? And there are reasons why Indian market did not perform well. So once we understand the reason, once we diagnose the problem, it becomes easy for you to seek the solution. Am I right? When you go to a doctor, the doctor will say, okay, let me see your blood pressure, let me check your pulses, he will put a stethoscope in your heart, the chest and see how it is and that, so and so forth. So I think first we need to understand what are the reasons why Indian equity market did not perform well till now. So let's try to understand the step by step. Poor earnings growth. India in FY 2025, we had just 5% earnings growth. And now 5% is less than the nominal GDP that one would. Now if there is no growth in earnings, your valuation becomes more rich. The liquidity dries up and market normally don't perform well. That's the reason number one. The reason number two has been the tariff uncertainty. Since beginning of 2025, Trump basically made life little miserable for India. And because of the tariff uncertainty, and of course on the top of it, we also an additional 25% additional tariff because on the pretext that India has been buying oil and the defense from Russia, baja do India ki. Number three, FI have been heavy sellers, and of course they had reasons to be sellers. For the very simple, there was no growth in earnings, and number two, the other markets like China were looking more attractive to them as compared to the Indian equity market. But last but not the least, which people normally don't talk about it, the other competing assets class were doing extremely well. I mean, market also needs liquidity to do well. Human tendency क्या होता है, जो assets class अच्छा चल रहा है, उस पे ज़्यादा पैसा डालो. And that's where crypto was doing well. The money that could have actually come to the equity market went to the crypto market. A lot of people went overboard and started investing in gold and the silver. So logically जो पैसा equity में आना चाहिए था, वो पैसा चला गया gold and silver में, for right or wrong reason. And these are the main four reasons Indian equity market faced a huge challenge to be the outlier. Normally Indian market is not known for the underperformer. Now let's try to understand this headwind that we see, what's happening there. Because when we understand the problem, then it becomes easy to see whether we see a light at the end of the tunnel or not. So let's start with the earnings growth. 15.4% earnings growth you can see for India Inc. And this number does not include Tata Motors demerger exceptional gain. If I add that, it will go to 33%. Am I right? 15.4% growth has been reported by India Inc. And this growth has been more broad-based. In fact, we did a very detailed analysis with our PMS customer yesterday, where mid-cap did better as compared to the large cap, and large cap did better in terms as compared to the small cap in terms of the net profit growth. But story doesn't end there. If you happen to listen to the con call of each and every India Inc., the second half of FY 2026 is going to be more robust as compared to the first half of 2020. तो ये तो शुरुआत हुई है growth in earnings का. Some people are skeptical whether the growth in, the consumption boom will it sustain post GST cut and so and so. Is it one-time benefit and so on and so forth? It looks like there are more structural changes that's happening, and hence this growth is not flash in the pan, but we will see more and more growth coming in. This is not my data. Kotak came out with some report a couple of months back, and they said in next 2 years, that is by FY 2028, NIFTY 50 will grow at 36%. And how this 36% comes from? FY 2027, the EPS will grow to 18.20%, and FY 2028, it will further go up by 15%. If you read my blog, which I wrote in the first week of October, I mentioned that Indian equity market will go up by 18% by next 1 year, in next 1 year. From October to October, we are already up by 6% or so, and I'll cover that in my subsequent slide. And at that point of time, people were not so bullish in the first week of October. But that's not the story. The story is that why I was a bullish, because even if assume there is no PE expansion in India, 18% growth in earnings would take care of 18% gain. And that's the reason I wrote two blogs. One blog, 18% growth in the first week of October, market to do give 18% return in next 12 months, and then said bull run has begun in the first week of November. So that's the first point. When earnings comes, investors come back. Am I right? And that's what is going to happen. The second factor, tariff. Now this tariff has been a major talking point in 2025, and unfortunately India has been on the wrong side of the tariff war. The good thing is that all the negatives related to the tariff is already there in the price. तो अभी उससे ज़्यादा कुछ बिगड़ नहीं सकता because of tariff news. Am I right? And even if you look at last 1 month, Trump has not made any statement against India. उसने बोला नहीं कि economy is in shambles or this and that. I think he has been very, very no negative. Otherwise, India was always has been in the news from Trump for one reason or other reason. We don't see that happening. So market has discounted the US tariff, but for some reason, and which I strongly believe will happen, there is a trade agreement with the Trump. It has a chance to lift the market sentiment. So what does this mean? It's a scenario where downside is protected, but upside is there. So that second hand has also been taken care. We talk about earnings. The second one is this one. FPI, after heavy sellers, from 1st October 2025 till yesterday, they pumped in 10,372 crore in the Indian equity market. They are not sellers, they are net buyers now in the Indian equity market. So that's another good thing which has happened. Now let's look at the other competing assets class. If you remember, I said I will not be comfortable now buying gold. In fact, on the contrary, I will be selling gold. And I did sell that 95,105, and I said I will sell further 5% of my total on 110, 120 kind of stuff. The gold, which was at 4381, has come down to about 4,000 to 4,016. In other words, it's down by 10% or so from the peak. Previously in my webinars, people would ask me about gold and silver. Yesterday I did a webinar with our PMS customer. Not a single customer asked me about the gold. Why? Because what everyone wants to chase the rising assets. I'll give you one classical thing which has happened. One of our PMS customer, he had the flat. He thought since the gold prices are going up, he sold the flat, not one where he was staying, but he has another additional flat. He invested in gold, and now he's repenting, why did I do that? That's what has happened. But imagine if the equity market was doing well, that money would not have gone into the gold, it would have gone to the equity market. But now, if that decision has to be taken now, I think he will think twice whether first thing is should he sell the real estate, and if he at all he sells the real estate, will he now put money into the gold? Something similar happened with the silver. 54 came down to 50 to 51, almost 14% decline. But on top of it, the bitcoins, 1.26 lakhs per dollar, Bitcoin came down to 86,527. The huge decline that happened in the what we call Bitcoin, which is 31% decline. Now you can imagine, and the one of the big people thought ETF has come, this has come, and who would have expected 1.26 is coming down to 86,000. So even that excitement to invest in bitcoins have subsided. I know one of our employees also got a little excited in bitcoins. Another day I was asking me, "Bolta saab paisa gaya. I don't know why did I invest. I got carried away in this." So now I asked him, "Will you put more money?" He said, "नहीं sir, पागल हो गया हूँ, काय के लिए अभी invest करूँगा." So money which was going. So what I'm trying to say, limited point. Equity was not on the discussion table 6 months back. Why? It was completely the discussion was dominated by bitcoins, discussion was dominated by gold and silver. Today, equity has again come back on the discussion table. That means the liquidity will increase. Now, the question comes on the valuation. Okay, is India's valuation is good enough to see the next bull run? So let's try to understand that also, because I know that question must be bothering you. So let's look at it. So that my job is to basically, whatever the thoughts you may have, let me try to address one by one. And of course, if I am not able to address another concern that you may have, I'll be more than happy to cover that also. So let's try to do that. Where do we stay? 473 lakh crore, India's market cap. What is our GDP likely to be in FY 2026? That's a nominal GDP 357 lakh crore. In other words, our market cap to GDP is about 133. Are we too much expensive as compared to the other players which have been competing? Let's look at the comparison. US is at 234, Japan is at 183, Canada is at 176, Korea is at 147, and India is at 132, and France is at 116, and of course in country like UK and China at so and so level. So is the Indian equity market? Yes, 132 is not a what we call very cheap kind of a market cap to GDP level. It is expensive, but what it used to be very, very expensive, it is no longer that much expensive. And when I compare with other parts of this, like see for Korean market, did extremely well. If you look at it, basically, we saw that number of Korean, how it performed. Sorry, the Korea, South Korea is 76%, and yet, and despite the GDP market, GDP ratio has been very, very high. So if you look at this way, Indian market, yes, it is not cheap, but at the same time, what it was expensive is not that. But that's only one indicator. What we did actually, we further divided India into top 100. That's a large cap company. And if you look at the market cap to GDP, historical average has been 67. We are at 79. Yes, we are commanding. But if you look at post-COVID, we are much more in the line, because India never used to I think somewhere we need to start learning now pre-COVID and post-COVID, because the kind of influx of new investors coming in India has been unprecedented. And because of that, the moment we look at the historical, everything looks very expensive in Indian equity market. But it doesn't look like this one when I look at from the what has happened from FY 2020, which is the new normal. That same way, if you look at the mid cap, which is the average is 17%, but the mid cap looks a little expensive, but the growth in the mid cap earnings has been also be better, so they are at 26%. And if you look at the market with GDP is at 27% for the small cap. So that's how it basically sums it up. But that's one idea, is that market cap to GDP ratio. Another way to look at it is a price to earning. So when you look at the Sensex price to earning 10-year average, it's at 24.5. We are at 23.2. And if there is a growth in earnings, we all know what would happen. That P, assume the price does not go up, P will further become attractive. If you look at the mid cap is also discounting at 15% below its average, 10-year average. 38.2 is a 10-year average. We are at 32.4, and the growth in earning has been extremely good for the mid cap. When you look at the small cap, it's at 33.4 as compared to 41.1, which is still below this one. So while in market cap to GDP, it still looks a little expensive, But when it comes to the price to earning, historically with the 10-year average with present, it looks cheap. And even if you look at the BSE 500, which consists of large, mid and some component of small cap, its 20-year average is 26%, we are at 25.1. What does this mean? This means is that the India's valuation has become reasonable for two reasons. One, there was a time correction which happened in last 12 to 15 months. Indian market did not go anywhere, but there is a growth in earnings, and the growth in earnings for the September has been quite robust. Another way to look at it, because if we are talking about FI money to come in, FI will always look at it what kind of premium India market commands as compared to the emerging markets. Now, if you look at the India always commanded historical average of 78% premium to the emerging market historically, and of course it went as high as 163% in 2022, which has now come down to 55. So what does this mean is that Indian market has become more attractive as compared to the other emerging markets, and that's another reason why liquidity from the FPI can make a strong comeback. Now let's another angle. If I look at the forward Nifty 50 average now, and as compared to what has been 10-year average has been 20.8. We are at 21.1. Now, the only, as I was talking about, I think somewhere we need to start going into that pre-COVID, post-COVID kind of analysis. Why? Because the number of investors which has come has been completely different as compared to what it was there in October 2015 till March 2020. Am I right? So this is the number. So in that sense also, Indian market looks reasonably valued. Another matrix, because ultimately you can't take only one matrix and decide ye acha, ye kharab hai. So if you look at the ROE, this is for the calendar year 2024 or FY 2025, the US has highest ROE, return on equity, 17.6. But which other country has the second highest is India, 16.1. Now why this is very important, remember that your ROE decides what kind of premium or what kind of price to earning you can command. And there is a direct correlation, higher the ROE, higher the price to earning ratio. So sometimes we debate, अरे China का तो price to earning इतना कम है, हमारा तो why would someone would come? But China का return on equity is only 8.6. If return of equity is only 8.6, they will command less, they should logically command less this one. But look at Taiwan, 26 का price to earning command करा है on the ROE of 11.7%. So somewhere, and if you look at the emerging market, they are at 11.7 only with the price to earning of 17.6. So when I look at various parameters and combination, Indian market doesn't look as expensive it used to look somewhere in the month of September 2024. So when you look at premium to emerging markets, whether you look at ROE versus the price to earning, whether you look at 10 years average of Sensex, mid cap, small cap and the BSE 500, we are trading below this. But one good thing is that when there is a growth in earnings, the market will reward much superior. The financials. India Inc. has never been so strong in terms of financials than what we are seeing. If you look at the borrowings, India Inc. always had a problem. Why this is very critical? Because people are talking about AI bubble and so on and so forth. Am I right? If you remember in 2008, each and every big corporates of India business house, when the global financial crisis happened, was highly leveraged. Tatas were leveraged because they took over Chorus and JLR. Birlas were leveraged because they took over Lovelis. Reliance was doing his own capex and they were leveraged. Today, India is not only less leverage, but look at the cash equivalent. It was in March 2020, it was 6.78 lakh crore. As of September 2025, is 13.45 lakh crore. This does not include the banks and the NBFCs and some of the liquid investment that India. So that means these numbers would be much better if I include the liquid investment also. So when I look at the market cap of India versus the cash equivalents, we are at 35.2 valuation. This is not the market cap because this is not something which many people use it. I use it just to show that India Inc. is on a strong footing. So for some reason, if there is some amount of a disturbance happens because of AI, and I'm going to cover what percentage of AI basically accounted in the US, China and the Taiwan market, India Inc. is on a very, very strong footing. So for some reason, if there is some amount of a disturbance, we are not going to see much impact on India because India is not in that fragile condition which it was there in the 2008. Fortunately, this government has been very, very proactive, and it's not my statement, okay, because sometimes people blame me that I'm little pro BJP and so on and so forth. My job is to tell you what I could say and what I'm saying. Am I right? In a very unbiased manner. But if you happen to listen to the corporates also, I think this government has been extremely proactive in terms of managing crisis. We have seen that happening during COVID time also. We have seen that happening when tariff hit us. So what is the government doing? First thing they did GST reforms. That's not the first thing, the last thing they did right now, because they did the GST reforms. They're very, very game-changing GST reforms. Now because of that, there was a fear that collection will drop, and because of that fiscal deficit will go a little haywire. I would not be surprised when on the 1st December the GST number comes, we should be about 2 lakh crore. What we saw in the month of May. We saw 1.96 lakh crore in the month of October, which had some impact of GST cut crystallization. And I think someone will say if we cut the loopholes, the number can go to 3 lakh crore also. That's what SBI economist recently stated, this one. So that's what is happening. So I think the government is willing to bite the bullet, want to take the hard measures to boost the economy. The last budget, we saw income tax rebate. So if you are earning 12 lakhs, okay, you don't pay income tax. And if you are an employee, then you have a standard deduction which is 12.7 lakh, you don't pay any income tax. That's a very big number which has happened. And the first time we saw 25% new slab rate coming in this one. But then how this is 60,000 rebate, just for the sake of understanding, 4 lakhs to 8 lakhs, you pay 5% tax. Am I right? So that is 4 lakh pay 5% is 20,000 rupees. From 8 lakh to 12 lakhs, you pay 10%, which is the 4 lakh pay 10% is 40,000. So 40,000 and 20,000, 60,000. So this rebate. So if you are up to 12 lakhs, you don't pay any income tax, and which is a big relief that has happened with this income tax. RBI is doing its own thing. 6.5, we are at 5.5. And remember, we are expecting one more rate cut on 5th December. In other words, we are basically, and now it's a deadly combination. Why? The rate of interest are down, government reforms are there, and with the growth in earnings, it makes all the more reason. And in fact, when the rate of interest comes down, it's all the more reason for the private players also to start capex, because the treasury which they are basically holding will yield much less return as compared to, and hence they will start looking out for the avenues where they can start doing capex. Of course, it also boosts consumption and so on and so forth. Not only RBI did the rate cut, they are also boosting liquidity in the system, in the economy, and that will further provide an engine or the lubricants for the growth in the economy. Of course, this is my personal view, not Market MOJO view. I believe STT in the coming budget either get demolished in the sense, get done away with it, or there will be reduction. Now that will be a big sentiment booster for the market. Of course, and we are not very far off from the budget, and market will start discounting somewhere by January first week what should be expecting in the budget. But it's not only the STT I'm talking about. this budget which is going to come is going to be the extremely investor friendly and economy friendly. I'm making this prediction. What can we see? Today, I don't know whether you are aware or not, but government has announced some reforms in the labor law. I don't know whether you are aware about it. Of course, this PPT was made before that. So we are seeing the government is going to focus in the coming budget ease of doing business. Not only that, new direct tax bill which was discussed in the last budget will come into this what we call budget. Government intention is to increase more retail participation, and in this budget we will see more measures that will encourage retail investors investment channelizing into the equity market, and we see some measures coming in this budget. At the same time, we all know that India's trade deficit has widened because of exports have fallen and the imports have risen, and we will see some concrete measure being announced for the export oriented sectors in the coming budget. And last but not the least, government understand very clearly that there is a limit where heavy lifting can be done by the public capex. So they will come out with some incentive plan that how do we see more private capex coming in. So these are the 5 fundamental pillars on which we should expect budget to deliver and lift the sentiment. At the same time, as I was saying, that investors is increasing, number of investors base is increasing. You see, we had only 2.7 crore investors in 2018, and that's the reason I was saying, and today we had 12 crore registered investors. So the numbers have, हिंदुस्तान का इंडिपेंडेंस से 2018 तक अपने 2.7 करोड़ इन्वेस्टर्स थे, और उसके बाद 7 सालों में इंडिया एडेड ऑलमोस्ट 9 करोड़ एडिशनल इन्वेस्टर्स. So you can imagine the power of compounding happening here. And what does this mean? More liquidity coming into the market. Fortunately, 80% of India's investors are below age of 40. And hence, probability is very high that they are going to put in more, channelize more, and say, unfortunately, that the financial literacy is increasing. People are aware about where to park funds, how to park funds. And that's a very good thing which is happening. Another thing which we have observed, in not 2 years in a row, the retail investors inflow has been subdued. For example, I'll just show you. In 2021 and 22, we saw a robust inflow from the retail investors. It went down marginal to 5243. 2024, we again saw increase, and again we saw a dip, big dip in the 2025. What does this mean? 2026, again we will see a record inflow coming in from the retail investors. If you look at from 2021, 17 lakh crore has been put in by DII. Individual investors put in about 4 lakh crore, and FI withdrawn almost about 71,000 crore from since 2021. I believe FI withdrawal will either decline or turn positive in the months to come. But at the same time, market dynamics are evolving. हम लोग बोलते हैं ना, जो चला है वही चलने वाला है, तो जरूरी नहीं वो नहीं होने वाला है. And I'll give you an example of that. In 2024, Nifty Pharma was the best performing sector, which was up by 39.1%. In 2025, it's down by 3.1%. Same way, Nifty Realty was up by 34.4%, is down by 12.3%. Small cap, which was the darling of the investors in 2024, is below the 2024 level, and so on and so forth. At the same time, some of the sector like Nifty Metal, which was not among the best, is one of the best performing sector in 2025. Nifty count is another very simple, and Bank Nifty, which was a very subdued kind of a numbers, 5.3, is up by 16 points. In fact, Bank Nifty is one of the best performing sector in 2025. Only thing which has happened with Nifty FMCG, which was down in red in 2024, it continues to remain red even in 2025. So it's evolving. Why am I saying so it's evolving? Because human tendency is क्या, जो चला है वही चलने वाला है. I remember many investors in 2024 in last quarter, they invested heavily in the realty sector. शायद आपने भी किया होगा, तो भी admit that. and today they are repenting. Why did they do that actually? So that's what happens because of recency bias. Another thing which I have observed as a trend, normally Indian equity market do not underperform for a long period as compared to the US market. So what I did, I have highlighted when Nifty 50 has outperformed the S&P 500 and Nasdaq. So in 2010 we did that, again we did in 2012, again we did in 2014, so almost every alternate year. Then it did not happen in 2016, but it happened in 2017, but it compensated again in 2018. Then 3 years in a row, the US market did well, better than the Indian equity market. Again we changed the trend, we were outperformed significantly in 2022. Why I say significantly, not many people remember, Nasdaq lost almost 1/3 and S&P 500 lost almost 20%. वो 3 साल वापस खत्म हो रहे 2025 में. So most probably in 2026 we'll again see Indian equity market doing better as compared to S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. Now one critical thing, because today everything is AI, and my analysis would have been incomplete if I don't talk about AI. So what this data basically shows, I'll show you in the next slide, is that what is AI dominance in the United States in terms of market cap. In 2025, AI companies accounts for 40% of the US total market cap, which is $28.6 trillion. In China, it's 15%, and in Taiwan, it's 44%. So, for some reason, there is some crisis happen because of AI, which I believe will happen because of valuation. India would be the beneficiary of that, because Hindustan में AI का market के में कोई contribution ही नहीं है. तो market, see AI as a theme. See, if you remember, in 2000 when Y2K boom and bust happened, India many software companies took a beating along with the Nasdaq. वो वैसा यहाँ पे नहीं होने वाला है, because अपने पास वो AI का बबल बना ही नहीं है. Are you getting my point? On the contrary, when this AI bubble gets this, the money will get reallocated to the Indian equity market, and that's where we should be looking at it. Now, how should you strategize? अगर मार्केट अच्छा करने वाला है तो क्या करना चाहिए आपको? That's where the question comes. Am I right? There are 4 ways you can do. Am I right? पहला क्या है? आप अपना पैसा को अपने आप मैनेज करो. Do it yourself, DIY. दूसरा ऑप्शन क्या है? आप म्यूचुअल फंड को पैसा दे दो, वो आपका पैसा मैनेज करेगा. तीसरा क्या है? आप इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर को ढूंढ लो, लाइक स्मॉल केस है या हमारा इन्फिनिटी है. ये नंबर 4 है, विच इज़ मोर हाई टिकट, HNI के लिए होता है पोर्टफोलियो मैनेजमेंट सर्विस, जो आपका पैसा मैनेज करता है आपके ही नाम पे. लेट्स ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड ईच वन इन what is good and what is not good for you. You can do it for yourself, DIY. पर उसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या मालूम है? रिसेंसी बायस. जो चला है वो चलने वाला है. गोल्ड चला था तो आपने गोल्ड में पैसा डाल दिया, बिटकॉइन चला था आपने बिटकॉइन में डाल दिया, सिल्वर चलने वाला था सिल्वर में डाल दिया, रेलवे स्टॉक चलना तो आपने रेलवे स्टॉक्स में डाल दिए. ये ऐसे करके आप डालते रहते हैं, देन यू रियलाइज दैट्स अ रॉन्ग स्टडी. सेकंड प्रॉब्लम इज दैट मेरा फ्रेंड इसमें इन्वेस्ट करा है, मुझे भी इन्वेस्ट करना है उस सेक्टर में, इस कंपनी में करा मुझे भी इन्वेस्ट करना है. Today there is a new trend which has happened with a new age technology company. I don't want to name, and I was with one of the leading investor, and we were discussing on one company which is a new age company having a market cap of 3 lakh crore, and everyone thinks that company will keep making money. So everyone wants to put money. We don't know whether that's going to from 3 lakh crore how much more capital it can give you. तो क्या होता है, हर एक आदमी को हर्ड मेंटली, और वो चला है तो चलने वाला है, और सब निकल तो मुझे भी निकलना है. तो दैट्स वेयर योर इमोशंस गेट इम्पैक्टेड. नंबर 3, ह्यूमन टेंडेंसी इज ऑलवेज जो गिरा है उसको लेने का, डबल करने का. बिकॉज कोई स्क्रिप्ट 100 में लिया है, वो 80 हो गया तो ये डबल अप बोलता है, अरे 100 में अच्छा तो 80 में तो अच्छा ही है ना, एंड 60 के वापस लोगे. Normal investors have a habit of catching falling knives. And that's where they don't make as much money as they should make. Fourth is emotional. Human by nature is emotional, and within the human space, if you have to further dissect and make it equity investors, then they will further go up in that quartile of emotional. हमारे यहाँ पे fear और greed बहुत जल्दी आ जाता है. As I told you, one investor sold the real estate house अपना दूसरा और गोल्ड में डाल दिया because fear greed था उसको. At the same time हमारा fear भी बहुत जल्दी आ जाता है. कुछ हुआ नहीं, let's get out of the market, we'll come back and we'll see that what happens kind of stuff. And last but not the least, no portfolio approach. We love tips. कोई स्टॉक टिप दे दिया, डाल दिया, वो खिचड़ी बन जाता है पोर्टफोलियो. क्यों? कि किसी का इसका ये एक्सपर्ट का एडवाइस, वो एक्सपर्ट का एडवाइस, वो टीवी चैनल का एडवाइस, वो मार्केट मोजो का एडवाइस, उसका एडवाइस, एंड दैट पोर्टफोलियो डजंट हैव अ वेरी सिंक्रोनाइज. It doesn't tell the story. It's like you are having a chole with sambar. Am I right? And that's what has happened. And because of that, you have a no portfolio approach. Probability very high that you will not make market beating returns. Why? Because some will do well, some companies will do well, some companies will not do well, and that basically creates a problem for you. Other option is that mutual fund. This is not my data, this is data published by SPIVA, that's a Standard & Poor. In last 6 months, large cap funds have underperformed by 65.6 and the mid and small cap 34.5. When I extend it, the number looks a little better. For 1 year, it's only 42% which is underperform and only 39% underperform. That is for 1 year. But when I further increase to 3 years, the graph goes up now. 67%, that is almost out of 3, 2 have underperformed the benchmark, and in terms of mid and small cap, 5 out of 4 have underperformed. When I further expand this data for 5 years, the numbers improved for the mid and small cap, which is 67%, which is almost 90%. That means 10 में से 9 scheme large cap की underperform हुए 5 years. And when you look at the 10 years period, the mid and small cap looks 82% have underperformed schemes and only 73% and only 27% outperform the scheme. What does this mean is that even the mutual fund, like there is a, अगर मैं आपको सबको पूछूंगा आपकी मेमोरी में यही होगा कि म्यूचुअल फंड has given me good returns to me. Have they outperform? कभी आपने ये देखा है कि उसका जो बेंचमार्क है उससे कितने ने आउट परफॉर्म किया है? एंड दिस इज डेटा विच हैज बीन अवेलेबल इन द पब्लिक डोमेन. आप स्पीवा करके लिख लो इंडियाज म्यूचुअल फंड अंडर परफॉर्म, आपको मिल जाएगा. ओके, नाउ देयर इज अनदर चैलेंज विच इज गोइंग टू हैपन. एज्यूम दैट यू मेड ए गुड मनी, यू हैव बीन लकी इनफ टू फाइंड ए राइट स्कीम इन योर म्यूचुअल फंड. द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट what you could do at 10,000 crore AUM is very unlikely that you'll be able to repeat at 70,000 crore. Why? Because your money that you are managing has gone through the roof. And because of that, probability is very, very high that you will not make that kind of a money. In fact, Prasan Jain was yesterday was in one of the business channel, was the clips was available that the investors those who come post COVID are not able to come to the real terms. उनको लगता है कि उतना ही पैसा आगे जाके ही बनने वाला है, वो नहीं बनने वाला है. And today when there is something called diseconomies of scale in the finance world, in the fund management, and that's going to happen. So you have to be extremely careful which mutual fund you go into and which scheme you do. I'm not saying don't put money into mutual fund. Please put, but your due diligence has to go up, and that's why I'm saying don't take it very casually. कि पहले पैसा बनाया तो बन जाएगा, जरूरी नहीं कि वो बनने वाला है. We do have a mutual fund ranking in our website. Maybe you can use that to help that. The third option is an investment advisory, where everything has been done by you. Only the fund manager, like Small Case or Infinity, will do the risk profiling of yourself. Based on your risk profiling, it will suggest you the strategy. Based on the strategy, not only they will recommend stocks, but they will do online. If you like doing on your own, please use that as well. One is that do it yourself is a different than investment advisory option. Why? Do it on your own is completely driven by your own human emotions, where you are not taking any portfolio approach. While in investment advisory, while you will buy and sell your own on your own, but someone is helping you to take decision कितना लेना है, कभी लेना है, कभी बेचना है, और बेचने के बाद कौन सा नया कंपनी लेना है. And the fourth option is like a PMS. Of course, it's only available for the 50 lakhs investors, those who are HNI customer. Why? Because वहाँ पे वो bespoke portfolio बनता है as per your what we call your risk appetite. Number one. Number two, this have been bought in your own in your name under your own demat account, but separate demat account, and it has been actively managed by the fund manager. Now आपके दिमाग में ख्याल आता होगा, ये बात तो सब सही है, पर क्या इंडियन इक्विटी मार्केट इज शोइंग सम साइन ऑफ अ बुलिश ट्रेंड और नॉट? बराबर है कि नहीं? And that's a very fair question. I was saying bull market is likely to begin. Now, at the fag end of my presentation, I am saying bull market has already begun. You have not realized that. Why you have not realized? Look at this data now. From 1st October to 20th November 2025, Nifty 50 is up by 6.4%, S&P is down by 2.2%, and Nasdaq is down by 2.6%. Now someone would still have a question mark in their mind. If US is not going to do well, how India will do well? Here is the data. The US did not do well, but Indian equity market do well. Of course, you don't believe me, don't invest, that's your choice. But I strongly believe that Indian equity market bull run has started. Start increasing your allocation to the equity, and when you increase the allocation, be careful where and how you put that money into the equity market. I'm open for all your critical questions. You can grill me on my presentation. I'll be more than happy to do that. And it's my promise, even though since I've extended my presentation, we'll extend the question and answer. बस ये क्वेश्चन आंसर से लंबा चलेगा. Damodar sir is saying how to select SWP on mutual fund, which fund is good for fund return. Damodar sir, please go to Market MOJO website. We have a beautiful mutual fund section, and please do that, sir. I'm not an expert on mutual fund. I don't invest a single rupee in mutual fund, sir. तो मुझे तो समझ में नहीं आता है, पर आप हमारी वेबसाइट पे वो सुविधा है. प्लीज टेक ए हेल्प ऑफ दैट एंड डू दैट. बेसिकली वी हैव ए वेरी ब्यूटीफुल section on the mutual funds, sir. Satish Nasir, hi, why small caps are not showing upward movement? Any fundamental issue with the small cap companies? So Satish sir, that yesterday I was doing a webinar with our PMS customer. So if you look at the September numbers, के जो growth in earnings and has been quite muted, is a single digit. While India Inc did 15% growth in net profit, driven mainly by the large cap, then by the mainly driven by the mid cap, followed by the large cap, and the small cap have not done as good as one would have expected to them. So that's the reason why they have not done well. Having said that, if I have to do fast forward, November 2026, probability very high that small cap would have done better. एंड सर नॉर्मली क्या होता है, जब नया तेजी चालू होता है ना, तो वो लार्ज कैप से चालू होता है. देन इट पर्कुलेट आउट टू स्मॉल कैप, एंड देन इट पर्कुलेट आउट टू इट पर्कुलेट आउट टू मिड कैप, एंड देन पर्कुलेट टू स्मॉल कैप. द मोमेंट इट पर्कुलेट आउट टू द माइक्रो कैप, दैट इज द एंड ऑफ द रैली, नॉट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द रैली. दैट्स हाउ इट हैपन्स. Frank, hello Sunil, what is your advice on buy and hold strategy? What you were against it? Has anything changed in your thinking? Please elaborate. Thanks. Sir, my views remain the same. Buy and hold strategy does not work. Let's look at Warren Buffett. And Frank, if you remember, sir, I did a detailed presentation about average holding by the Warren Buffett, which was someone did an analysis. Apple he bought, and Apple he sold. We all know how quickly he got in and got out of it. Am I right? Airline stock he got in and got off this one. So buy and hold strategy, see, blindly following buy and hold strategy is a disaster for your portfolio. I again repeat, it's not that I don't own stocks which I must have bought 10 years back. I still own that shares. But I'm not blindly following that buy and hold strategy. I said when you buy a stock, you have a reasons to buy that stock. Am I right? Is that reason has undergone change? If the answer is yes, please get out. वो profit में हो या loss में हो. Be courageous to even book losses. But the reason has not changed. Why do you want to get out of that company? So so buy and hold strategy blindly करोगे तो गलत तकलीफ है. आपका पैसा नहीं बनेगा. And you will more or less end up having Dutch stocks in your portfolio, and many times that stocks will not be listed also. So hold on to that company as long as the reason for which you bought the company, it continues to be there. The reason changes, you should change and you get out of that company. That's what I do, and that's what I preach also, Frank. Tadao sir, yes, also thank you for your insight. Since small caps earnings are subsidized, will it underperform going forward? No, sir. We will see a catch up in the small cap earnings growth also. And as I said, by November 2026, if I have to come in front of you, probably is very high the small cap would have done better as compared to mid and large. Jacob sir, for global investors with options, India is still a highly priced emerging markets. Market has stayed sideways thanks to domestic flows. Can tariff issue resolution and trade deal alone lift the Indian market so much as a lot of people believe? So Jacob sir, you are right that as a global investor, you have various options available. Whether you invest in emerging markets, you invest in global markets, you invest in frontier market, you invest in other exotic products, which are structured products and so on and so forth. But sir, if you look at it, India is still not highly priced emerging market. And I don't know whether you get a chance to look at my presentation or you were there or not. But is it visible? Oh God, okay. Okay, so I think I made a mistake, but I'll show you. So I will tell you. So I made one presentation, I made one slide where I shown India's premium to the emerging markets, what it was there and what it is now. So India's, always used to command on an average 70% premium to the other emerging markets. We went as high as 163 in 2022. Right now we are at 55% premium. So in other words, an Indian market should command a premium because our ROE, which I was explaining it to you, is much higher as compared to some of the other emerging markets. So why should we not command the PE? You can't see the PE in isolation. So my sense is that Indian market valuations are much better as compared to the other emerging markets. Now your question is that this tariff resolution and trade deal can lift the Indian market. So that's a one kicker only, sir. But there are other kicker in the sense GST reforms, income tax benefit, rate of reduction coming down, more reforms coming in from the government of India, and so on and so forth, are the other kickers for the Indian equity market to do well. And I strongly believe the growth in earnings would be very robust. And when the growth in earnings comes, liquidity will chase. And when liquidity comes back, you know what happens. जो पैसा bitcoins में जा रहा था, जो पैसा gold and silver में जा रहा था, I think that has stopped going. So previously, assume that money doesn't come out from bitcoins, gold and silver to equity market. But no new allocation will be made to those assets. And hence, now equity as an asset class is on the table for consideration for the investors, which was not there 6 months back. Rahul Kumar, how will Japanese yen credit rate play out in next few months? Do you see selling pressure across global, but I believe may not see high volume of selling as it is now enjoying a small pie of global funds? So Rahul sir, yesterday also someone asked me that question, and then I did read one report. So forex yen carry trade is about $250 billion or something. Can it have an impact? Answer is yes. कुछ होगा तो unwind होगा, हो सकता है. Is it going to be too much cascading effect? The answer is no. So, and if you, I don't know whether you are aware, but the Japanese do have more than 1 trillion outside Japan invested in forex market. तो मुझे ज़्यादा कोई impact नहीं लग रहा है. Yes, some institute may go bust. I must tell you that also because of yen carry trade. Because what is yen carry trade? You had borrowed in Japan and invested because of almost zero kind of a rate of interest. And that borrowed capital you invested somewhere else to get the higher yield. जब yield Japan में बढ़ जाएगा तो आपको तकलीफ हो जाएगा. And that's what can happen. So some companies can go bust, some institute can go bust. But will that have a very cascading effect on the global economy or the Indian equity market? The answer is no. So it can have an impact, negative sentiment of 1 or 2 days because of this news, but not beyond that side. So I don't expect that to happen, Rahul Kumar sir. $250 billion ही है forex का yen carry trade exposure. Good evening. There is a sea of information on Market MOJO, both fundamental and technical. Many of us, I feel, do not understand the technical information like Bollinger Band, Dow theory, case. Is it possible to conduct a webinar of basics of technical data? Shall be grateful for it. Definitely, Rajkumar sir. Why can't we do it? अरे ये सवाल जेसन को भिजवा दो please. I'll ask my product team to do a webinar exclusively on this thing so that you people can understand. Either Jason can do or we have a head of research, Sagar. He can, I don't know who will do it, but definitely we can do it, sir. That's not a problem. That's a good suggestion. We'll ask my team to do that. Thanks, sir. आप just please Jason को भिजवा दीजिए. William Charles, sir, when can we expect real rally in small and mid cap? Which sectors will be the leaders during 2025 to 2020? Thank you. So, William sir, I am doing an equity outlook webinar in the first week of January 2026. वहाँ पे तो you know that I have a very bad habit of doing expectation, what to expect. Okay, someone said don't use prediction, but you use the probability. I started using probability only. So I do give what is the return mid and small cap will give. So I'll also show what I predicted in 2025 and what happened. We also tell large cap का क्या probability है निफ्टी का, what percent return, FI का कितना expectation हो सकता है, कितना rate cut हो सकता है, कितना crude oil हो सकता है, so and so forth. So sir, just hold on to your horses. एक महीना, little more than 1 month, I will in front of you and I will tell you which sector will do well. If you remember, the last year I said, that is not last year, but 2025 I said, BFSI should do well, infra should do well, and FMC should do well. FMC did not do well, let's be very honest with you. But BFSI as a space did extremely well, and so is the case infra. So I'll even cover sectors also, sir. आप सब फिर एक्साइटमेंट लेके जाओगे, फिर आप आओगे नहीं मेरे इक्विटी आउटलुक 2026 में. थोड़ा तो सस्पेंस रखना पड़ेगा ना मुझे सर. Balasundaram, sir, thanks for the confidence shared on the market. Looking forward to a strong bull run in the Indian market. Your chart showed the ROE of India as a 16.1 and the Korea at 7. However, you also mentioned that the returns in Korean markets has been very strong. With a low ROE, strong return looks like a dichotomy. Your view, definitely, sir. Balasundaram, sir, I said that. It cannot sustain that kind of a valuations. That's what exactly I said. So there will be a correction. So don't expect 2026 for South Korea as strong as what we've seen in 2025. वो नहीं होने वाला है. And that's why I'm extremely bullish that money which will flow out of country like South Korea, other emerging markets like China will come to India, and with US market will see some kind of a wobbling. Some money will get higher allocation, will come to emerging markets, and India will get its own fair share in that. And since our valuation, which was 68% on average, 78% on an average premium to the emerging markets, which is now at 55%, is another reason why we will see this happening very strongly. So you are right, sir. Your observation is absolutely right, sir. Sagar Parekh, sir, the USA market is correcting. How much we can affect due to this? If you can see numbers, if they correct 20, we go down 20, 30 or 10% since we have not raised that much, or more than 20% due to emerging markets. Also, I'm an NRI, so need to have some allocation to USD for covering future studies of kids. At the moment, I'm completely invested in Indian market. So, is it right time to start in USD in US market or wait for some time? So, Sagar sir, my personal opinion, not Markets Mojo opinion. So in 2022, I don't know, you sir, Sagar sir, you had you attended this presentation. I said in 2022, the US market was down by 33%, Nasdaq. Okay, and the Indian market was not down. In fact, the Nasdaq was by 33% in 2022. The S&P 500 was down by 19%. Indian market gave positive returns. So that gives you an idea. From 1st October till 20th October, 20th November, the US market is down, but Indian market is up. So जरूरी नहीं को correlation वहाँ पे चलना चाहिए. Now you are right that since you are an NRI, you need to have some allocation in USD. See sir, if you wish to invest in USD in the US, little be careful with the AI stocks. When Mohit and I were there, when we did the power series कभी किया था, हाँ we did on one of the holiday, I think वो देव दिवाली के दिन किया था हम लोग ने. And I did say that the outlook for the AI as a business is robust, but in terms of the stock market investors, it looks like difficult. So please stay away. So if you look at this US market rally is more driven by the Magnificent Seven. As long as you are staying away from there and little more careful with your stock selection, you should be fine. Just for your information, Sagar sir, we do have a coverage on the US market where we do have a rating on each and every US listed company, and we do have a portfolio, curated portfolios for the US market. Maybe you can use that to invest that. But will I be comfortable today investing in that Magnificent Seven companies? My answer is no. Why? Because I do see more pain in those companies. Pain has just started, sir. तो थोड़ा और ज़्यादा रहेगा उसमें. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Mayank sir, tax benefit only to salaried person, not to small business class. Why, sir? I don't know why you are saying so, sir. Its benefit is available to everyone. जिसका 12 लाख के नीचे इनकम है सबको तो रिबेट है सर. उसमें वहाँ पे थोड़ी वो बोलता है कि आप स्मॉल बिजनेस हो तो आपको नहीं मिलेगा, आपको सैलरी है तो मिलेगा. ओनली 75 एडिशनल डिडक्शन, स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन जो अलग है, बाकी बेनिफिट तो सबको ही है सर. कौन बोला नहीं है स्मॉल बिजनेस को? और स्मॉल बिजनेस वाले सैलरी वाले को तो और तकलीफ है, वो तो खोटे खर्चे भी नहीं डाल सकते. While the business people, they do extra, they inflate the expenses to reduce the tax liability. Unfortunately for salary class, दो तो एम्प्लॉय निकाल के दे देता पैसा, तो वो भी नहीं हो सकता है. तो आई डोंट थिंक द टैक्स बेनिफिट ओनली सैलरी पीपल एंड नॉट टू द स्मॉल बिजनेस क्लास, अनलेस आई एम मिसिंग सम बिगर पॉइंट, मयंक सर. I am also salary and I know how much it pains me, sir. Can you please list top 10 sectors in the current market? Prabhu sir, I did that with our PMS webinar. If you want, so what I will do, sir, as I told you, I will talk about that in January, first week of January, sectors to watch, sector that we should be watching out in 2026. तो सर थोड़ा रुक जाइए प्रभु सर, मैं डेफिनेटली करने वाला हूँ वेबिनार. And I'll give you 3-4 sectors. Kiran sir, I understand if it is LTC or STCG reduction benefit, but why STCG removal will be such a big impact? So sir, today I make money or don't make money, I pay 0.1% STT, both on my buy and both on my sell. That makes me 0.2 on single transaction I do, because every buy will have a sell eventual, and hence you end up paying 0.2% on the portfolio value, on the buying and selling value. See, remember, the gain is computed on the gain, the long-term capital and short-term value. And for just to give an example, okay, if I buy for 1 crore, I am paying 1.1%. 0.1%, 10 lakh, 1 lakh or 10,000 रुपया, 10,000 I am paying. Suppose 1 crore पे I made say 5 lakhs rupees, okay, 5%, and assume that it's a short-term credit, I pay 20% this one, which is equivalent to 10,000 rupees. So STT is charged on the transaction value, while the long-term and short-term is charged on the gain only. And that gain of long term and short term, that when you incur a loss, you can carry forward. STT आप carry forward नहीं कर सकते हो सर, वो तो आपको लग गया. Second thing, capital gain is charged on the incidence of gain. STT is charged on the transaction. आप कैपिटल लॉन्ग टर्म और शॉर्ट टर्म कभी दोगे टैक्स उस पर, जब आप बुक करोगे तभी. जो नॉशनल इस पर तो नहीं दे रहे हो. STT तो आपका एक्चुअल चला जाता है, तो आपका फंड फ्लो में निकल जाता है वो पैसा पहले से ही. आप समझे? दैट्स व्हाई इट्स अ बिग इम्पैक्ट. सेकंड थिंग, STT what came into picture only because LTCG was zero. अभी LTCG तो जीरो रहा नहीं है, 10% था, उससे 12.5 हो गया. तो जो उसका जो लॉजिक था STT का लेके आने का, that logic itself has been now defeated. So that's why it will be a big impact. I hope you understood. STT is charged on the transaction value, while the long term and short term is charged on the capital gain value. Second thing, losses can be carried forward. एक्चुअली लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल 1.25 लाख का आपको रिबेट भी है, STT में वो रिबेट भी नहीं है आपको. आप समझे सर? देयर इज वन मोर टेक्निकलिटी आई विच यू मे नॉट बी अवेयर. इफ यू फाइल योर इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न, देयर आर टू स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स. वन स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स विच सेज दैट you cannot include STT as a part of your cost of acquisition, or you can reduce from the cost of sale. And there is one school of thought which says it can be. You need to decide which school of thought you wish to believe in. So we have 5 more minutes because we'll wind up by let's take last 5 questions. Chalo. Ravindra sir, like last year, you will also in the month of January present your market view, sector view for 2020. In 2020, I remember you clearly said mid and small cap will not perform good, and it turned out to be true. So Ravindra sir, I have a very bad habit, and I've been doing for many years now. First, before I start presentation and predicting my outlook for the next year, I will give you my report card, what I predicted last year and what actually happened. So if you remember, 2025 started when the mid and small cap were the darling of the investors. I saw that the small cap almost gave 20-25% return. So I do that, Ravindra sir. I'm very happy that you observe that. So this year also I'll do where I've gone right, where I've gone wrong. For example, FPI investment. I believe at that point of time that we will see net inflow of 50,000 to 1 lakh crore from FPI, but unfortunately they are net sellers. So I'll give you all my hits and misses of this year 2025, and then I'll start with my 2026 prediction. I keep doing every year, sir. सर मैं भगवान तो हूँ नहीं तो मैं गलत जाऊँगा. So always you should take with my prediction with a pinch of salt. Very good presentation as usual. When the FPI investors come back to Indian market in the coming months, where they are likely to invest, large caps or mid caps, or do invest in small cap? मोटा पैसा सर लार्ज कैप में जाता है, एंड दे ऑल्सो इन्वेस्ट इन मिड कैप. डजंट मीन दैट दे डोंट इन्वेस्ट. स्मॉल कैप में जाता है इन्वेस्टमेंट, पर उसको थोड़ा जाता है, बिकॉज स्मॉल कैप डजंट हैव दैट capability to absorb that kind of money. So, and when the FPI come away very strongly, the bulk of the money will go to the large cap, followed by mid and then the small cap. That's how it's going to happen, sir. Bangaria sir, is it reported the GST driven market run to end by this quarter? It is reported the GST driven market run to end by this quarter, and front loading of public capex. How your expectation for market move continues in future? Bangaria sir, I'm not very clear what do you mean by GST driven market run, which will end by this quarter. Sorry, my apologies sir. I have not understood your question, so hence I will not be able to. I don't want to unnecessarily make guess and answer, which is of no point. Venu sir, can I invest in silver at the current levels? My current gold and silver is only 2%. So as per your expert opinion, shall I invest in gold or silver? Advice please. So Venu sir, since your allocation is only 2%, ideally you should increase it to 10 to 15%. Should you do it at one go? Answer is no. Please do it in a very systematic manner. Between gold and silver, I would prefer silver. Sudhakar sir, good evening, Sunil sir. What will happen if an investor goes with all 4 strategies like 20% on, 25 days, 25 advisory, 25 PMS? Sir, क्या होगा आपका? आपका खिचड़ी बन जाएगा. In the sense, some will do well, some will not will do well. So you as an investor, Sudhakar sir, you should say, मेरा तो 100 रुपया था, 25 रुपये मैंने अपने आप मैनेज किया, 25 रुपये म्यूचुअल फंड को दिया, 25 रुपया इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजर को दिया, 25 रुपया पीएमएस को दे दिया. वो 100 रुपया बना क्या अंत में? किसी ने अच्छा किया होगा, किसी ने अच्छा नहीं किया होगा. अभी 100 रुपया जाए तो फिर फायदा क्या हुआ आपका? Then did you participate in the bull run? The answer may be no. So you should always, so when you diversify too much also is not very healthy. I met one investor, उसके पास 20 म्यूचुअल फंड स्कीम है. मैं बोला सर आप करना क्या चाहते हो? पहले तो म्यूचुअल फंड बाय ऑन एन एवरेज दे विल इन्वेस्ट इन 100 कंपनीज और सो. अभी 20 म्यूचुअल फंड में डाला तो कोई म्यूचुअल फंड अच्छा करेगा, कोई नहीं करेगा. ओवरऑल योर रिटर्न फ्रॉम द म्यूचुअल फंड एज ए बास्केट इज गॉन नोवेयर. Am I right? So sir, sometimes it's not a very healthy strategy. If you ask me very honestly, if you are the HNI customers, park more funds with the PMS. If you don't have 50 lakhs per less, go with the investment advisor. There are very good investment advisors available in the country. They will help you do that. And some portion you should manage on your own also, I must tell you. And within mutual fund, if at all you wish to go, since they are underperforming the benchmark, maybe you should go for the passive funds than the active funds. That's where you should look at it. Ashish sir, hope you are doing well. Shall I invest some part of my investment in foreign equity like US or any other country? Any other way to diversify REIT, other metal apart from gold and silver? So sir, REIT is a good option if you wish to do that. Other part of the country, of course you can do that. We do have near about 25-26 countries available on our website, which helps you to either take stock specific approach or the portfolio approach. My always preference is a portfolio approach because that's what one should do it so that we are more structured. If you want to invest, sir, I have single exposure to the foreign equity market. I must tell you that. I believe Indian equity market should do extremely well, even in dollar terms. That's why I have not taken exposure to the foreign market. But different investors have different risk appetite, different risk expectation, return expectation. I'm happy what I'm doing with my investment in India. And God has been kind that it's giving me good returns to me. So then if that is so, why should I go outside India to park my funds? But if you wish to do that, we do have an InfinHub as a product which will help you to explore other markets across the world. Last question in the interest of the time. In fact, मैंने बोला था 15 मिनट पे 15 past 8 हम लोग खत्म हो गए, 8:17 हो गए. Last question. Happy evening, sir. Nifty 50 weekly chart has a cup and handle pattern and has a target of 29,000 if it breaks above. So your prediction of bull market is aligned with the technical analysis too. Any near-term target predictions from your side? Thank you, sir. अरे सर मैं तो टेक्निकल समझता ही नहीं हूँ. I'll tell you very honestly. I don't understand a T of technicals. I'm happy that you are saying that technically also the Nifty looks good. And any short-term prediction, sir, it's not my cup of tea. I'm not very good in terms of making short-term prediction. But of course, I'm going to predict, well, the Nifty 50 would be by end of December 2026. That I'm going to predict in January 2026. Thanks a lot, everyone. Very interesting set of questions. I know we will have more questions, but in the interest of the time, we will need to conclude here. Good night. Take care. Have a great weekend. See you next week. On Thursday, I'm in front of our PMS customer with very interesting data. On Friday, I'm going to do the equity outlook. The reason I'm doing Friday, next Friday equity outlook, because the next week again I'm traveling and I will not be in the front of you. That's the reason I'm going on Friday, which is the last day of the November month. Good night. Take care.